On this day in history, November 16th, 1272, while traveling during the Ninth Crusade, Prince Edward becomes the King of England upon Henry III of England's death, but he will not return to England for nearly 2 years to assume the throne. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, going over the history of the prince. In May 1254, Edward went to Gascony to take possession of his inheritance. He then crossed the Pyrenees, and in October was dubbed knight by Alfonso and married to Eleanor at the Cistercian convent of La Hueglas, near Burgos. He remained in Gascony till November 1255, but his father was too jealous to allow him a free hand in its administration. After his return, the attempts of his agents to establish English laws in Welsh possessions brought Edward into hostile relations with the Welsh. Here also his father would give him no help, and his first campaign brought him little result. Edward became extremely unpopular through his association with his Lusignan kinsfolk, his pride and violence, and the disorders of his household. In 1258, his strenuous opposition to the provisions of Oxford further weakened his position, but after the banishment of the foreigners, he began to take up a wiser line. In 1259, he led the young nobles who insisted that the triumphant oligarchy should carry out the reforms to which it was pledged. For a moment, it looked as if Edward and Leicester might make common cause, but Edward remained an enemy of Montfort, though he strove to infuse his father's party with a more liberal and national spirit. He was the soul of the reconstituted Royalist party formed about 1263. In 1264, he took a prominent part in the fighting between the king and the barons. At the Battle of Lewes, his rash pursuit of the Londoners contributed to his father's defeat. 2 days later, Edward surrendered to Leicester as a hostage for the good behavior of his allies. He was forced to give up his earldom of Chester to Leicester, but at Whitsuntide, 1265, he escaped from his custodians and joined the lords of the Welsh March, who were still in arms. With their aid, he defeated and slew Leicester at Evesham on August 4, 1265. For the rest of Henry III's reign, Edward controlled his father's policy and appropriated enough of Leicester's ideals to make the Royalist restoration no mere reaction. So peaceful became the outlook of affairs that in 1268 Edward took the cross, hoping to join the new crusade of St. Louis. Want of money delayed his departure till 1270, by which time St. Louis was dead, and a truce concluded with the infidel. Refusing to be a party to such treason to Christendom, Edward went with his personal followers to Acre, where he abode from May 1271 to August 1272. Despite his energy and valor, he could do little to prop up the decaying crusading kingdom, and he narrowly escaped assassination. The declining health of his father induced him to return to the west. He learned in Sicily the death of Henry III on November 16, 1272. On November 20th, the day of Henry's funeral, he was recognized as king by the English barons, and from that day his regnal years were subsequently computed. Affairs in England were so peaceful that Edward did not hurry home. After a slow journey through Italy and France, he did homage to his cousin Philip III at Paris on July 26, 1273. He then went to Gascony, where he stayed nearly a year. He landed at Dover on August 2, 1274, and was crowned at Westminster on August 18th.